Rabbi Isai, we are going to speak about the 4 parts of your soul. You ready? Your soul basically emanates out of 4 elements. Okay? In the same way that in the physical world, they're finding more and more evidence of 4 elements that compose all things. Those 4 elements are fire, water, air, and earth. Beautiful. Those 4 elements are found in all things. Some of them, of course, are primary, some of them are secondary. All those elements are essentially in different combinations make up the thicker part of matter. One example that Moshe Wolfson, Shlita brings, is wood. Wood is earth, it's from the earth. It's also fire because it's a source of fire, which means when you light it on fire, it must be that there's some element of fire that it's pulled out as it's keeping the fire going. The water, of course, is that there's sap, there's wetness, there's blood, sap inside the tree, inside the wood. And there's air that when you look under a microscope, you see most of matter is actually air. There's a lot of air there as well. And the air is also used to help the fire. So he just brings that as one example that even in physical things, there's a certain interplay of these elements going on. But we're going to talk about those elements on a spiritual level. That when we say that your soul is emerging into the world through these 4 elements, we don't mean that if you take a cross section of your soul, you're going to see like a little fire in there, or you're going to see like a drop of water in there, or you're going to see a bunch of earth in there, or some air. What we mean is you're going to see the spiritual concept of fire, the spiritual concept of air, spiritual concept of earth, and spiritual concept of water. Okay? Let's look inside. We mentioned Vihi HaMislabeshes Bedam, and your animal soul. Now, these 4 elements are found both in your animal soul and found in your godly soul. And we're going to explain that each one of them is going to express itself in its own way. Remember, what does the animal soul want to do? Nefesh Bahamas? Go to the Bahamas. It's always trying to essentially just get pleasure in the now. And what does the godly soul want?
Spiritual relationships.
Emes, meaning, intimacy, long-term success, to do something bigger than itself. That's the godly soul. So the animal soul is found in the dam, la'chayos haguf, to give life to the body, the kedichsiv ki nefesh habasar bedami, umemena, and from the animal soul, ba'ois kol hamidos rois, come all your bad character traits. So you want to know, where does your jealousy come from? Where does your selfishness come from? Where does your arrogance come from? Where does your impatience come from? Where does just name a few more for me. Your tithes come from? Your depression come from? Laziness come from? You just keep going, Make us all in a great mood. And where does your anxieties come from? All of it? All of it?
Literally all your problems.
All your problems come from your animal soul. All of it. Where does your animal soul come from? The snake. We're going to talk about all these ideas in more detail as we go. The Tanya builds day after day, page after page, shear after shear. We're building a magnificent palace of consciousness. So, all the negative traits come from the animal soul. Everything. 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 The darkest, the worst stuff. You know what's really exciting about that?
So that comes from your Yitzhar, you're so good to turn it.
Okay, that is good. So, you have a lot of work to do, a lot to fix. What's really exciting that all my negative traits come from my animal soul, means it must be that those things aren't me. Because I'm the godly soul, truly. And therefore, so it's not me, it's that I fell for it. I fell for the snake. I fell for it. It's true, I'm going to be held responsible for falling for it, but is it me? My addiction's me? Or my strange behaviors and inappropriate behaviors and inappropriate thoughts me? They're not me. They're external to me, but they coaxed me into doing something. Why is that so important? Because a lot of people believe when they go down a path of Avera, of negative thoughts, depression, that they became depressed. That they are somehow now trapped. But the answer is they are not. They just got seduced by their animal soul. So your animal soul is the source of all of your problems. And it's more sophisticated than that, specifically because the animal soul, like we mentioned in the beginning, as well as the godly soul, but now we're focusing on the animal soul, is divided up me'arba yesodis roim shaba, are divided up into 4 different elements. These 4 elements, therefore, all my negative traits come from my animal soul. My animal soul, though, has 4 subsections. From those 4 subsections emanate all the negativity. What are those 4 subsections? Dahainu, for example. Let's speak of some of them. Let's talk about a few negative things. Kas. What's kas? Anger. The gaiva. What's gaiva? Arrogance, pride. Out of the 4 elements, what do you think is the source of those? Fire. Miyusaid ha'esh. My animal soul has this fire element. Of course, it doesn't mean that when you look inside of my soul, you're going to see flame under a microscope. It means that what's fire? Fire's hot. It's hot. Let's talk about the spiritual qualities of fire. Fire's hot.
So it's 4 within the animal soul.
Say?
It's like 4 things within the animal soul.
There's 4 subsections of the animal soul, and the animal soul is the general problem. I.e., it's the source of, like we said, everything that is about me. That's centered on sustaining me, sustaining my body. It's essentially animalistic. You don't get mad at an animal because he just wants to procreate and just eat all day and get the most pleasure that it can get. You're not upset at him because that's what he does. Why do you get upset at a guy who's just selfish, impatient, wants to eat and sleep with women all day? Why is that somehow inappropriate? Because you tell him, you're made up of an animal soul and a godly soul. The gazelle, I'm not upset at the gazelle because it doesn't have a godly soul. It has a low-level soul. There's such a thing called the nefesh. It has a godly point inside of it, but it doesn't have a free will soul, a godly soul that wants to bring godliness down to the world. It's just occupied with being a gazelle, which means it'll try to take care of its well-being and its health. It'll nurse other gazelles back to well-being if that's going to help the pride. I don't know if gazelles have a pride. So fact check me on that one. Whatever it is, they'll take care of their own. So you also have that animal soul that wants to take care of yourself and basically just have pleasure. Now your animal soul is more sophisticated because it has intellectual elements. So your animal soul wants to get angry when it doesn't get what it wants. Anger is a very interesting character trait. Why should you ever get angry? Anyone understand why a person would ever get angry? It's because, deeper than that, When you get angry, essentially what you're saying is you have a picture worked out in your head,
It's not going right.
and it's not going the way that I painted my picture. Now, you know what I say? It's not me, it's the tzaddikim that say this. Who told you that life should be like the picture that you put in your head? There's a long lineup, there's a guy really stinky in line, some guy butt in front of him. Why are you getting angry? Maybe Hashem wants, he does want it to happen. He doesn't want you to get angry. You're going to have to deal with that situation. But anger is never an option, ever. Anger is never an option. Because you're saying that you really don't believe in God's plan.
Your plan is better. And
Your plan is better, and
you
you've
do it.
decided that it has to be that way. Who said that? No, you don't like if someone comes over to you and punches you in the nose. That's not pleasant. But should you be angry at them? No, it's hard. It's going to be hard to manage that. But God is going to keep taking. When you stub your toe, so you go yell at your wife. You put this thing there and stubbed my toe, and if you would have cleaned up the house, I'm so angry at you. Wait a second. That was supposed to happen. Maybe you could. Maybe your wife, between her and Hashem, she's also going to have to work about maybe cleaning things up or whatever the case is. But never is anger an option. You're going to have to maybe talk to her about how the house should be, and maybe you should pick it up. What? Anger is never an option. Anger is that I thought the world should look in a certain way. And when a guy is, you want to know one of the best tips to never get angry again? Have some guy video you while you're getting angry. And then watch yourself on tape later. And you'll see that you look like the biggest fool. And I'm being generous when I say fool. You just look like a guy who's like angry. Or like a guy with road rage. Seen guys with road rage. I saw a guy who was driving. I was like to a bris a couple days ago. And I was in the car and there was a guy in like a fancy BMW next to it. It was like too fancy a car for just like driving the streets of Yerushalayim. He was like yelling. He was yelling at somebody on the screen in front of him. He was yelling at all the cars around him. And I couldn't hear, but I saw and he was like sped up a lot, very fast. I just looked at this person. Ooh, that's nasty, bro. You just look so nasty. With your BMW 5 Series M, like sports decked out edition. I just felt so bad for this guy. So bad for this guy. He looked so, animalistic behind him, but it was sophisticated animalistic. It was very sophisticated, but it was disgusting. So if you get a video of yourself becoming angry, you'll be like, what happened? What came over me? That's why the Gemara says that any person who gets angry, it's like he worshipped idols. What are you worshiping? You're worshiping yourself. And like we mentioned many times before, avodah zara doesn't necessarily mean you worship idols. It means avodah zara, weird service. Avodah means to serve. Zara, zarut, means strange. You're doing very strange things. The person who gets angry is extremely strange and warped. And what happens to a guy who's angry? Is he cool as a cucumber?
When you take that video, you bug out.
First of all, he'll bug out on you. And is his face usually like a nice,
Frustrated. It's all
tan color? Or is it hot?
nice tomato.
Red like a tomato, right? That's like hot, that's fire. So a person who's getting angry, it means that the part of his animal, so-called fire, is out of whack. He's out of whack. He's a heated up guy. He's bubbled up. We'll talk about this in other shiurim, how that type of person also needs to be careful about certain physical, therapeutical foods that for somebody else would be positive, but for him might throw him off. For example, a guy who's very hot in his temperament shouldn't eat that many spicy foods. Because he's already off kilter with hot stuff. A lot of this is very logical. So you start giving that guy like hot, spicy stuff, it just heats up his system more than needs to be heated up. But a guy who's more cool and not as active, he might need some hotter things in his diet. This is where you can actually start to use the temperaments of the soul and understand how healing works into that. Why did we say gaiva, a person who has an imbalance in fire, is haughty? Because what's a hottie guy always try to do?
Prove it's the best.
I'm bigger than you. Put some stuff up. Like the basketball guy. Stop. It's like ball with all the all the Russian guys in the courts of Toronto. Stop. And it was a stop. It was a up. Because the fire is always jumping. The fire is always going up. So hottie guys are always trying to one up. They're always going up. They're flying up. High stuff. Always going up. That's Aish. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler alert. Is fire bad?
No.
Sometimes.
Now, let's just take fire on the negative side one more step. What happens when fire gets out of control? It destroys everything. Fire destroys. That's why anger can destroy everything. The Gemara says about a husband and wife that how do you spell man and how do you spell woman in Hebrew? Ish for Isha. So how do you spell Ish? Ish is a man. Aleph, Yud, Shin. How do you spell Isha? Aleph, Shin, Hey. What happens? Right? This is such a classic one. It's like, first day. So Ish and Isha. So that's a man, that's a woman. Man, woman. Okay? When they're Zoicha, which means when they have harmony in their home, they have a Yud and a Hey. Meaning when they come together, Yud and a Hey, Hashem, the divine presence, the Shekhinah dwells with them. When they're Zoicha, they literally, in their names, they're complementary. The man has the Yud, that's the higher spiritual element. The woman is the Hey, that's the building element, actualization of that vision. When they're working together in harmony, they mamish have the Shekhinah. It's the biggest simcha. When a husband and wife are getting along, there's no greater pleasure. Matzah ani. Matzah isha, matzah taiv. The greatest good is when you and your wife are getting along. It's so beautiful. But God forbid, if they take God out of their life, it's not just Aish. It's Aish times, it's Aish squared. It's mamish Aish. Aish. Fires consume them. That's why it's so sad. But if a husband and wife, if it doesn't go right, Matzah ani yasar isha mar nemavis, King Solomon says. If it's going good, it's the best in the world. If it's not going good, King Solomon says it's worse than death. Whoa, that's pretty bad, King Solomon. Like, worse than that? Yeah. Worse than that? Yeah. It's so sad when that relationship doesn't work because they took God out of it. Then it's all fire, consumes. And they'll do that's why when there's really like bad divorce, it could be years in courts and nasty, very nasty stuff. That's why keep the Shekhinah in the bias. Keep the Shekhinah. That's the secret. So fire is an element that's very destructive. It destroys. But I'm going to give you, like I said, the spoiler alert. Fire is not a bad element. Fire builds, right? Fire is what gives life, cooks. Fire gives warmth. Right now we're going to be going through the elements on your animal soul. Your godly soul also emanates through these 4 elements. So what do you think? Because if fire on the side of the animal soul, all the destructive qualities, and there's more, you could think about many more. Any of those hot, anger, gaiva, you'll continue that list. What does that look like on the godly soul? Because the godly soul wants to use everything for Hashem. So what does fire look like if the godly soul is emanating through that quality, that medium called fire? What does that look like? Passion.
Control.
It's controlled passion. When you see somebody come to davening on fire. I saw a certain yid today. I don't want to say the name. On fire for davening. On fire. It's like having a husband and wife that are passionate about each other, to care about each other. It's not like, how's your day? Fine. It's a husband who's mamish. He's ready to love them. He's so into her. He's on fire mamish. To be a passionate yid, to be on fire with Torah, Eish HaTorah. When he lit up with learning, lit up with life. Fire, that's what a big thing by the Chassidim is it gotta be a mamish on fire with Torah. And it's none of this cold, stuff. It's on fire. And I'll leave you with this. Simai used to say, the tzaddik at Simayim, that it used to be that the Jews, it was very cold in Europe. But we used to jump, I was with Reb Kip, we went to Mezhbich together, to the Baal Shem Tov's mikveh. It's like death, it's so cold. The Arizal feels like a hot tub. For Hamev and Yavin. The Jews used to break the ice, go into the water. Icy cold mikvahs, but their hearts were ablaze, they were on fire. On fire, mamish. Nowadays, I go to my mikvah, you know how hot my mikvah is? It's so hot, I come up beet red. It's so, I'm almost nervous, I'm actually gonna cook myself in the water. It's like bishul on Shabbos, like of myself. It's so hot, the mikvah. It's like steam is coming out of it. So Tzimar said, nowadays we go into the hot mikvahs, but our hearts are cold like ice. It used to be, we went into the cold ice, but our hearts were ablaze. We need to learn to get the heart ablaze again, on fire. But for Torah, for mitzvahs, for Mashiach, to be mamish fired up. Not be fired up on the other side for all the nourishkeit and fired up with Patty Mahomes. Patty! Yeah! Gambling and betting and just, what are you so red? See guys gambling? They're like, pump, yeah! That's rather a behemoth. I don't know if I ever saw a bamboon more like that's ain't a doim of the bamboon yoysim mizu. It's mamid, they're fired up for a bunch of guys running around in their short underwear and tackling each other. It's like the gazelles. They're mamish a bunch of gazelles. And I'm fired up about that. That's like pumps me up. I'm pumped up about that. It's crazy. But that's the Eish on the Nefesh HaBahamis side. The Eish on the Nefesh HaBahamis is just the animal inside getting all revved up. We need to pull that, and there's nothing wrong with being revved up, but I want to be revved up for eternity. I mean, revved up about Torah and mitzvahs to be continued Yesher Kohen Tevra.